Welcome to the demo for Combat Mission Shock Force 2. Combat Mission Shock Force was originally released in 2007 and it revolves around a purely hypothetical NATO invasion of Syria in 2008. The base game contains the US Army, the Syrian Army and unconventional forces. Later modules added in the US Marines, the British Army, the Dutch, the Canadians and the Germans. This is a ludicrous amount of content, and Battlefront has decided to update it to the current Combat Mission game standard and release it as Combat Mission Shock Force 2. This is a big deal in the world of Combat Mission. The original Shock Force is over 10 years old now, but its setting is still as relevant and interesting as ever. While the game itself represents a hypothetical conflict, the units, terrain and the features all give players, scenario designers and modders the ability to represent other contemporary and more recent conflicts in the Middle East and Afghanistan if they so wish, which obviously translates into even more potential content. Although Shock Force and Black Sea both represent modern warfare, there are big differences between the forces involved. The US Army from Shock Force's 2008 is a very different beast than the US Army from Black Sea's 2017. This doesn't mean that the Syrian army will do very well against them in a stand-up fight, but unlike Black Sea, there are more options to balance things out. The scenarios in particular tend to have asymmetric goals. For example, the US player might have to keep his casualties below a very low threshold and lose points if he causes collateral damage, while a Syrian player probably isn't going to have to worry about these things. Another important consideration in terms of balance is that with so many different factions in the mix, there are a lot of interesting potential matchups. Three NATO countries, the British forces and the US Marines, are all beneath the US Army in the food chain and are going to be very interesting to play against one another in blue on blue games. Then there are the unconventionals, the insurgents, who have things like IEDs and car bombs to factor in as asymmetric opponents. The demo is free, go and download it, have a look for yourself, I'll leave the link in the description below. It has 4 scenarios that you can play single player against the AI or another human being via the usual combat mission methods if you can find one. In this video I'm going to be playing through the Day at the Beach scenario from the US Marine Corps module. I'm going to try and keep this on the cinematic side and not give too much away. There are only 4 scenarios in the demo after all. This shouldn't compromise your enjoyment of this scenario too much, but rather obviously there are spoilers ahead. This is in the early stage of the war, where NATO is mounting a concentric invasion of Syria. The US Army and British forces are invading from Iraq in the east. Canadian, Dutch and German task forces are attacking from the north across the Turkish border, and the US Marine Corps is attacking the Mediterranean coast from the west. In Day at the Beach, we're conducting an amphibious assault with a Marine rifle company carried in amphibious assault vehicles. Looking at the map, we're landing in this bay area dominated by high ground on the flanks and ahead along the coastal road. My main concern here is going to be getting ashore as fast as possible. The AAVs are going to be crammed full of troops, they're going to be moving slowly in the sea, and they're going to be super exposed and very vulnerable to any anti-tank weapons the Syrian defenders might have up on the high ground. In Combat Mission, if an amphibious vehicle is destroyed while it's in the water, all its crew and all its passengers instantly become casualties, and because I'm going to have a whole company spread across only 7 vehicles, I really can't afford to lose any. I can't decide where the AAVs are going to come in. They're going to pop in at the 5-minute mark in the centre of the seaward map edge, and however appealing it is to think about landing on a flank to gain a secure lodgement and move in from there, it's just going to be too risky to keep the AAVs at sea for so long. So we're not going for subtlety with this plan, we're going straight up that beach, guns blazing. To help out with this and to check the landing area for mines and obstacles, I have a shore party consisting of a Marine engineer platoon and a forward observer team that have snuck onto the beach already, and they're able to call for naval gunfire support. Apart from the naval guns, the engineers are armed as standard Marine riflemen. They all have M16A4 rifles instead of the M4A1s that you'd expect in Black Sea. This alone sets the Marines apart from all the other factions in Shock Force because their standard issue weapon cannot be fired on full auto. The Marines here are going to be firing in single shot or 3-round burst only, with an emphasis for individual marksmanship rather than volume of fire that's backed up by the number of optics they have. Unless one of these engineers is a team leader with an M203 grenade launcher, all the Marines here have 4 times ACOG optics on their rifles. It's like having little squads full of marksmen. What these guys are going to be doing here is moving forward to gain some better cover and trying to spot as many Syrian positions as possible so that they can be targeted by the naval guns. Hopefully the shore party should have a spotting advantage because they are all equipped with night vision devices. This is a dawn assault, it's going to start off dark, and if we need to start locating enemy positions by drawing fire, it should hopefully be relatively safe when the Syrians start shooting back. Speaking of Syrians, the briefing only says that Syrian reservists are mobilising in the area. That's good news because an opposed beach landing is hard enough as it is. I'm not going to complain about fighting low quality troops. Apart from that, I know nothing about them. I don't know if I'm going to be fighting infantry, I don't know if they're going to have infantry fighting vehicles or tanks backing them up, I don't know if they're going to be getting reinforcements as the battle goes on. The initial contacts that the shore party is picking up seem to be dismounted dug-in infantry, and they certainly know we're coming, but I'm going to have to stay on my toes. This isn't the US Army where I can dole out javelins to everyone and their mum. A Marine Rifle Company in Shock Force 2 has 2 javelin teams and a small squad in each platoon. The AAVs don't have any anti-armor capability beyond their 40mm HEDP grenades, so even old armor that the Syrians have, like T-55s or BMP-1s, are something that I need to be actually quite cautious of. There don't seem to be any vehicles out there at this stage though. The shore party engineer teams are putting effective fire out, effective enough to make some of the Syrians on the left flee their trenches, but the Marines are still very exposed down on the beach, and the Syrians are shooting back with AKs, RPDs and RPGs. I am taking casualties here and there, but nothing serious, and it's definitely worth it. All those Syrian teams opening fire up there are revealing their positions, and at the 5-minute mark, A Company arrives and its 7 AAVs. The AAVs hold 21 passengers and 3 crew, which is why they are immediately heading for the relative safety of dry land as fast as physically possible, but they are also armed with Mark 19 40mm automatic grenade launchers and the good old M2 50 cal machine guns with a ton of ammunition, and as they're moving forward, they're lighting up all these Syrian trenches and firing positions that the shore party has been identifying. The AAVs are designed to put some significant suppressive fire out there, and it doesn't take long for the Syrian fire to slacken off, as they very sensibly start keeping their heads down. Under this curtain of suppressive fire, including the naval gunfire support, the AAVs quickly reach the beach, pop smoke and start unloading the Marines. I've got a whole Marine Rifle Company here, and it's a very different creature from the US Army infantry that I'm used to from Black Sea. I've already covered how the Marines are armed with a single shot and burst though the M16A4, but they've also got an extra 4-man fire team in each squad, and in Shock Force their team leaders aren't armed with underbarrel grenade launchers like the M203 and M320, but they're armed with M32 revolver grenade launchers in addition to their M16s. The platoons are triangular, and they have 2 M240 GPMGs like army platoons, but they also have an assault squad which is armed with 2 Mark 153 smalls, which is very broadly equivalent to an RPG, and is capable of firing high explosive or armor piercing rounds. So Marine platoons have a lot more bodies, and they have a lot more firepower than their army counterparts. Now that the Marines are on the beach and I've got a foothold, I'm going to simply advance on all fronts. One platoon is going left, one platoon is going right, and one is going straight up the middle, with the AAVs and the company HQ units, including the 2 Javelin-equipped AT teams, hanging back to provide fire support and standing by to move where they might be needed. Like I've said earlier, this is not an exercise in subtlety, this is an exercise in maximum violence, relentlessly applied to one Syrian position after another until they're all gone. In addition to the naval guns, I also now have 2 AH-1W Super Cobras to call on. In this mission, they're loaded with 76 cm Hydra rockets, in addition to their standard 20mm cannons, and I've called them in to cover the coastal road on each flank. I might be able to put down a ludicrous amount of fire from my position down on the beach, but I'm still in a cauldron, and things will go badly wrong very quickly if Syrian tanks or reinforcements start popping up on the heights and firing down on my Marines. So I'm using the Cobras to screen my flanks, put the hurt on any reinforcements that approach on the coastal road, and to lay into any Syrian positions up on the hills that I haven't spotted yet. In this way, the battle quickly devolves into a series of methodical position attacks as the company pushes up the beach. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in on one for a detailed look at how it works. The shore party took some fire from and spotted this position fairly early in the game. It's slap bang in the centre of the hillside in a little bowl, actually on the reverse slope from this rubble pile on the edge of the beach, which has kept it down at the bottom of my artillery priority list because it can't cover the beach itself. It is, however, directly in the path of my centre platoon, who are going to be dealing with it pretty much on their own because it's in defilade into flanking attacks. The Syrian reservists in that trench down there are probably pretty damn nervous right now. There's a lot of fire smacking their buddies around on the hills to either side, and they might already be starting to waver. We can't count on them running away at the first sight of the Marines though, so we're going to do some straightforward fire manoeuvre to close with and destroy them. This rubble pile, about 100 metres in front of them, is going to have to do as a fire support position, which is going to give the rifle squads room to move around the flanks. So up go the platoon's two M240 teams to set up on the rubble and start putting some fire down. The Syrians aren't quite shaking in their boots yet though. There's at least 3 teams of them in that trench, and they're able to shut down the first MG team to reach the pile with automatic fire. The rubble mound isn't exactly an ideal position for the base of fire here. It would be better if it was further out, and best if it could enfilade the trench line, but I need to bully my way through these Syrians as fast as possible and get out of this cauldron down on the beach, which means I don't have time to mess about. The second M240 team is able to start pouring it on, but I've ordered 2 of the AAVs up to help out. With the other Syrian positions up on the hillside being suppressed or destroyed by artillery and the other AAVs, 2 vehicles take up hull-down positions on either flank and start filling the trench in with their Mark 19s. The Syrians quickly get suppressed or they start to fall back under fire, and the rifle squads start bounding forwards on either side of the rubble pile. When they start getting too close to the trench for the AAVs to come in safely, the platoon starts to maintain its fire superiority organically. The MG is still going. The small squad puts some HE rockets into the trench, and the left-hand rifle squad starts putting fire out too as the right-hand squad continues to advance. The Syrians have clearly had enough of this. There's been a couple of squirters heading for the hills already, but as the Marines move in, they start to crumble. At least one throws his weapon down and starts trying to surrender, the others get up and start to flee, but they're exposing themselves to the Marines when they do that, and they start getting shot in the back. By the time the Marines storm the trench itself, the original occupants are either surrendering, dead in the bottom, or they're scrabbling for cover in the hollow behind the trench. That's this Syrian position secure. Now we can move the fire support up and start suppressing the next position. This is what the Marines have been doing since they landed on the beach. This is what they're going to be doing all the way to the end, whether they're on the left, in the centre, or on the right. And the Syrian reservists here don't have an answer to this. They're not toothless, they are capable of inflicting casualties if the Marines get too close, but the casualty ratio here is horrifically one-sided, and they're being steadily driven out of their trenches up the hillside, which is where the Cobras are just waiting for them. Ending the game a little prematurely. I could have played all the way to the end and mopped up the remaining Syrians without too much trouble. It's a major victory for the Marines. I've taken 12 casualties, that's 5 dead and 7 wounded, mostly in the same engineer squad from the shore party who were unlucky enough to not only storm the only trench where the Syrians fought back, but they actually caught a stray rocket from one of the Cobra strafing runs. The Syrians, on the other hand, have 142 dead, 79 wounded, and 6 taken prisoner. All 3 of these numbers are only going to have increased if I'd continued to mop them all up and use the rest of the time. The bulk of the enemy casualties here have unsurprisingly been caused by the Cobras, followed closely by the artillery, but some of the infantry teams have managed to reach double figures in casualties inflicted, which is no mean achievement. And that's about it. Like I've said, I've avoided going into too much detail here. There's only 4 scenarios in the demo, and while you've got a pretty good look at Day at the Beach, hopefully I haven't given too much away in terms of the specifics and spoiled it. I'm definitely liking the US Marines though. They're very different from the US Army in Black Sea. I'm really looking forward to Shock Force 2's release. There's so much stuff in this game coming out that I want to mess around with, so much stuff I want to try out to see how it's changed from Shock Force 1, and I really want to get some interesting blue on blue or unconventional forces games going. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick sneak peek at the demo. Like I said at the start, there's a link to it down in the description. It's free, go check it out, and I'll catch you in the next video.